Good evening, Mr. Bond fans. Riding the hype train for No Time to Die has been one hell of an experience, hasn't it? There has been good news and bad news on the No Time to Die front lately. The good news being that we received probably the strongest indication yet that the film's release is going ahead this year, as the official accounts revealed that the world premiere of the film is scheduled to take place on Tuesday, September 28th, 2021, being the important figure there, at the Royal Albert Hall. Now, it goes without saying that anything can happen, anything can change, but it is hard not to be just a little bit excited about this news. This went out on a Friday, too, and as the last couple of delay announcements have been made on Thursdays and Fridays, every week when it comes around to those days, I'm on tenterhooks. So seeing a bit of news on a Friday that was good, that had me loading my bags on the hype train, I'm very pleased. The bad news, however, is that for Bond fans in Australia and New Zealand, the film's release has been postponed until November 11th. This is, of course, due to the lockdown situations in those places, and in light of this development, I would recommend that should these dates stick all over the world, if you're able to see the film before it's released in other major territories, Bond fans, be mindful of whether or not you're putting out spoilers in your social media posts without good warning. Once the film is released, I'll of course make a video about my own thoughts and opinions for this channel, but there will be a non-spoiler portion and a spoiler portion. So yes, I'd recommend some solidarity with fans who might not be able to see the film as early as others. I feel like the last few videos that I've made about No Time to Die on this channel have been, it's either business related, it's delay related, pandemic related, all those things, and sometimes I feel like I almost lose sight of the fact that there is an actual film here that I am really excited about. So with that in mind, here are the 5 things that have me most excited about seeing No Time to Die. Starting with the film's director, Cary Fukunaga. Now, obviously Fukunaga came into the process after Danny Boyle and his writer left the thing, and I honestly did not know much about this director prior to him being announced as the Bond director, but the more reading I do of interviews with him, the more I see of his stuff, I don't know how to articulate this other than I just think that he gets it. Particularly compared with the last couple of directors that the series has had. Like, I'm a massive Skyfall fan, I absolutely adore that film, but I think that Sam Mendes and Mark Forster, who did Quantum of Solace, obviously, they're very arty directors. Like, a lot of their past filmographies before they did Bond was kind of drama and like Oscar bait, very emotional kind of stuff, and I feel like the series was very clearly trying to go a bit more emotional, a bit more character-driven with them, and Fukunaga has done dramas and really moving stuff as well, but I feel like he knows what an audience come to a Bond film for. I feel like he is going to bring fun, I feel like he's going to bring energy, I feel like he's going to bring great action, and I just feel like he knows what he would want an ideal Bond film to be, and he's gonna give us that. The fact that he really sought out this gig, that according to that Total Film article earlier this year, he really wined and dined Barbara Broccoli, he really wanted this gig, and I love that. He's also probably the first director since, I would say, Terrence Young, that looks like he could actually play James Bond himself. He just seems so contemporary, trendy. I think he's gonna have some really good references to draw on. I think he's gonna make a really fun, vibrant, energetic film, which just has me so excited. Next up, and this is perhaps a little bit of a cheat because there are 3 elements to my point here, but the new Bond women, I'm excited about them. Starting with Madeleine Swann, like, if you'd have told me 4 or 5 years ago that I would actually be excited about the character of Madeleine Swann reappearing from Spectre, I would have told you, you need to go to the Shrublands Health Spa, you need to relax, you're clearly insane. And yet, here I am, I'm excited to see how that character plays into the story, and indeed, a good part of the big, massive, in fact, the whole story seems like it's kind of centered around her character. She's one of my least favorite Bond girls, and in Spectre, I don't feel like the character was very well developed. I don't feel like there was any, like, fun to her, any kind of vibrancy, and I don't blame the actress for that. I think the actress is brilliant, but I think from a character point of view, she's having to go through most of the film with all of this trauma about her dad dying and stuff, so maybe it makes sense that the character is a bit kind of more low-key and moody, and that's not saying that I want her to be the life and soul of the party, but I just never got much of a sense of chemistry, really, between her and Bond. And when I think of the other great loves of Bond's life that we've seen throughout the films, obviously Tracy from Majesty's Secret Service and Vesper from Casino Royale, you want to have that fun chemistry. From what I think we've seen in the No Time to Die material so far, that chemistry is more present in those few snippets that we've seen in the trailers than it was in that entire film, Inspector. It comes up quite a bit, I think, in fan discussion, could No Time to Die make Spectre a better film? And given that it's bringing her back, given that it's bringing Christoph Waltz back as Blofeld, I think it could. I think this could be the redemption of that film, quite honestly. And next up we have Nomi, who is obviously another massive part of the film. We're seeing a lot of Lashana Lynch's character in the promotional material. She's obviously part of MI6. Bond is going to have to team up with her, and I think that's really exciting. I'm glad that Craig is having that. It has, similarities to Roger Moore pairing up with Anya Amasova, with Dr. Holly Goodhead, and then Pierce Brosnan with Wei Lin and Jinx. I know that in Quantum of Solace, Camille was technically another agent, but I don't know, that relationship between those two there, it never felt the same. It never felt like Camille was sort of on a level pegging with Bond. I didn't think anyway, not when you compare her to the likes of Dr. Goodhead and Wei Lin. So I'm excited to see how Craig's Bond reacts to that, very much that toe-to-toe, I think I'm your equal, Mr. Bond, kind of relationship. I think there's going to be some good friction there, some good chemistry. I've already enjoyed their sparring in some of the trailers. So yeah, I think it's nice that they're going back to that classic pairing, and particularly for Craig's Bond, because I think he's going to have some very interesting reactions to her. Then, of course, we have Paloma, Ana de Armas, who is one of my most favorite newcomer actresses, I would say. I know she's been kind of around for a good few years, but certainly in the stuff that I've seen her in, even if she wasn't in a Bond film, she's an actress that I would seek out the work of. I think she's that good. I think she's absolutely fantastic in Knives Out, and I think her coming into this film, I really like it, because not only is she is, a very, a gorgeously attractive woman, but she has a quirkiness to her and a kind of kookiness in a kind of an Eva Green kind of way that I think is going to lend a good deal of humor to her part. I think it's, and this is me reading into the trailers quite a bit, we haven't seen that much of her in different outfits and whatnot in the trailers, so I've heard rumors that her character is not going to be in the film all that much, so I don't know if this is going to be like a Monica Bellucci kind of role, and she's going to be in it for maybe 5-10 minutes and then out of it. I think it'll be interesting to see how, or if any of these women actually, well, we know that Madeline's going to be sleeping with Bond, but, obviously it's a tradition that Bond sleeps with, several women throughout a film, and I do wonder if Nomi or Paloma, are gonna fit into that category, or if the films have kind of moved on beyond that. There's certainly been a lot less of an emphasis on sex in the Daniel Craig era, and so I think it'll be interesting, because Paloma would otherwise be that character, her and Bond would sleep together, and I don't know if that's going to happen. It will depend on, I guess, if he's still really hung up on Madeline, if he doesn't feel like he's going to move on, because obviously from the trailers we can see that their relationship is going to break down fairly early on, and that's going to be something played out throughout the film. So I think it'll be interesting to see how Nomi and Paloma fit in that respect. So number 3 on my list of things I'm excited about, Safin, played by Rami Malek, of course. I love how much they're bigging up this character in the press material. They seem to be focusing an awful lot on the creepy mask, and kind of, it's almost like they're talking about a horror character. There's something really spooky and ominous about him. Barbara Broccoli described him as being the villain that really gets under Bond's skin, and I'm really intrigued to see how that plays out. You don't often get Bond villains marketed almost as if they're like Michael Myers or something, but it feels like that's what they're doing with Rami Malek's character. Most of the time, main Bond villains are either kind of presented as a physical equal for Bond, or more of an intellectual kind of adversary, and for them to focus on the creepiness of Safin is really interesting. I think Rami Malek can do that. I think sometimes if you see Rami Malek just giving interviews on chat shows, sometimes the guy has kind of a creepy kind of vibe. So I think he's going to bring that. I think he's a phenomenal actor. And yeah, I'm fascinated to see what he's going to do with Safin. Now, I'm going to get into perhaps potentially slightly spoilery territory here, based on the stuff that we've seen in the press material so far. I'm not coming here with any kind of major scoops. I'm just interpreting what I have seen in the material so far. But obviously there's been an awful lot of speculation that Safin's character might end up being revealed to be Dr. No. I think there are a lot of really obvious clues there, like the mask that Safin is wearing that they're really sort of bigging up in the promotional material is called a No mask, and then there's that shot in the trailer of him with the kind of the grated ceiling behind him, like obviously like a set that we see in Dr. No's lair in Crab Key in the 1962 film. But I still don't think that they would do that exactly, because then they already did it in Spectre, and I feel like if they do it again here, it will set a precedent that whatever's going to come next, like in the next film, are we all going to be like, oh, could it be Goldfinger, or could it be Largo, or whatever? And ultimately, I think a big issue with the Blofeld reveal in Spectre is that it only means something to a part of the audience. It means nothing to the characters on screen. So when Christoph Waltz reveals his name in Spectre, he could say anything. He could say, my name is, you know, Saul Knobloch III, and it would be exactly the same reaction. So on a similar note here, I think if they were to do that with Safin, and at one moment he's just going to be like, oh, I prefer to go by my chosen name of Dr. No. I just, you know, what difference does it make if he's Safin or Dr. No? To the characters on screen, that is. I have no doubt that people in the audience might get something out of that. I don't know, would you get anything out of that? I kind of prefer him to just be Safin. However, I think the clues are very much there, and I think a part of that is because I think that he's an original villain, and I think that he's an amalgamation of Fleming's Dr. No and Shatterhand from the novel You Only Live Twice. In some of the promotional material, like, we've seen Safin with a gunshot wound on his chest, which is traditionally where a person's heart would be. And I have a feeling that in Fleming's Dr. No, there's an element about that villain that his heart is on the other side of his chest. So he got shot, but it didn't kill him because his heart was in an unusual place. I feel like they're just cherry-picking these details from some of Fleming's villains, these unused elements. You know, like Garden of Death kind of vibes from some of the shots we've seen of Safin, like walking through woods and in his own little private sort of bonsai tree garden kind of thing. So I think that element from Fleming's You Only Live Twice could come in here. And I think that's great. I think, yes, cherry pick those unused ideas from Fleming. That's a brilliant idea. But if he is Dr. No, I don't know, it'll be a shoulder shrug moment from me anyway. I don't think I'd care much either way. Fourth thing I'm really excited about, action. The Bond series has proven time and time again that it knows how to stay relevant in the genre, in the space of the cinematic landscape in which it sits. And with us having seen an awful lot of incredible action sequences in films like, you know, the Mission Impossible series, obviously, John Wick, I think we're seeing some really inventive, great action sequences in other action films and other thrillers, and Bond has always been really good at going like a step above and topping that. I feel like Spectre was a little bit tepid, very tepid when it came to the action sequences. There's very little in that film that really gets my blood pumping, so I feel like they're going to want to double down and better that. We haven't seen an awful lot of some action sequences in the trailer, just like little snippets here and there, and I'm just really excited to see how they come together as entire sequences. I think that the Hans Zimmer score is going to work brilliantly with it. I'm really looking forward to have that adrenaline boost from this film. I think the action sequences are going to be something really special, actually. And last, but certainly by no means least, the fifth thing that I'm most excited about No Time to Die for is, well, it's probably the top of the list, quite honestly, Daniel Craig returning as the character for one last time. By the sounds of some of the promotional material, he's very much an agent at the end of his tenure. Quite deliberately so, and perhaps that's going to tread on some similar ground to Skyfall, because Skyfall had an awful lot of the old ways and staying relevant and all that kind of stuff thematically, which some people, including myself, feel like that was a little bit too early in Craig's tenure to have some of those themes explored. I feel like here, though, they're going to be much more overt, and I'm excited to see how Craig's performance evolves over the entire 5 films. I had a Daniel Craig marathon earlier this year where I watched all 4 of his films in a single day, and it really stuck out to me how his performance is doing something different quite deliberately in every film. Every Bond evolves and changes over the course of their tenure because they become more confident in the part, they're more self-assured, they're more relaxed, all that kind of stuff. Or they're more pissed off like Connery. But with Craig, it feels like there are very deliberate evolutions of his character that feel like they're gonna kind of climax in No Time to Die, and I'm really excited to see how that works out. I'm really intrigued by some of the quotes from the Total Film article, actually. The world has moved on in Bond's absence, and the former 007 is no longer revered the way he was. What we wanted to do was not ridicule him, it's sharing in the fun with the audience, Craig explains, but you've got to be respectful of what it is. When it comes to playing with tradition, Fukunaga concurs. That's the fun part, but it has to be the icing versus the foundation. I prefer not to throw the baby out with the bathwater and instead try to find ways where if something feels stagnant, then you mix that up a little bit. Now, I know that this is not going to be to everyone's taste. I know that some people reacted to some of the earlier trailers feeling that Bond was too much the butt of the joke. You know me making fun of his knee and the receptionist guy at MI6 not knowing his name. I've never personally been able to get behind that kind of criticism because that is something that has kind of been around in the series almost since the very beginning. I think Goldfinger director Guy Hamilton actually puts it best.
The thing is to give Bond a hard time, take the mickey out of Bond, because his turn will come. But you've got to set up that people that he's dealing with are clever, and Bond, you'll have to be a damn sight cleverer than they are if you're going to get out of the problems that we are going to produce for you.
So if Spectre is kind of Craig's most typical Bond performance, let's say, his most typically cinematic Bond performance, where he's kind of like firing on all cylinders and all that kind of stuff, I'm interested to see how No Time to Die kind of builds on that and goes one step beyond that, and what the character is like in this new space. I think that evolution is really exciting. So there we go, those are the things that have me most hyped about No Time to Die. Please do let me know your do 5 actually, your 5 things that have you most excited about seeing No Time to Die, and one of those could well be just sitting in the cinema and actually seeing it. I feel like we've waited so long for this. I'm very excited. But yeah, do let me know in the comment section below. And also feel free to click the subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with future video uploads. And yeah, why not even hit the Mrs. Bell button if you want to stay super up to date and get notifications about when I upload new videos. So all of those buttons and links are below. And with all that being said, and until next time, Bond fans, so long for now.